Hello everyone, welcome on in. The time has come for the second major of 2025. It's the French Open men's singles preview show here on Betting Weekly Game Batch with me, Nigel Seeley. Before I introduce you to Sean Calvert, if you like our content, there's going to be plenty more tennis coming over the next 2 weeks. You don't want to miss a thing. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like, notify, get the notifications on every time a tennis show drops over the next 2 weeks, and in Wimbledon and through the remainder of the season, you will be notified. So first of all, hit that subscribe button. If you're new to the channel, welcome on in. This is Betting Weekly Studios on YouTube, and this is Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. And this is our senior ATP Tour handicapper. It is Sean Calvert. Good morning to you. Good afternoon, Sean. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Yes, not too bad at all. Thanks. You?
I'm good. I always get a bit buzzy about the French Open. I always quite like it because the sun is in the air, spring is here, summer's here. And I think I've said this to you before, I quite like it because the football season's over. You can concentrate on tennis. The evenings are nice and sunny. You can watch the tennis in the garden. You can have a nice relaxation. I get a good buzz for the French Open.
Yeah, I don't. But
okay, right, no worries.
The reason
is there anything you get buzz for anymore? Anything?
I get buzz for all sorts of things, but not this. I mean, we'll come on to the trends and all
getting
that.
10% discount off your shopping with a voucher or something like that. That gives you the biggest.
I don't actually do the shopping, but if I was doing the shopping, I don't know whether that would be a buzz. I think I'd be pleased. Yeah, I don't think
finding £2 in your jean pocket when you put it in the wash. Is that your kind of buzz now?
I guess, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I think you're pushing it with buzz, but the problem I have with the French Open is that it pretty much goes almost exactly to form the whole time, and that includes the winner, outright winner, and most of the matches. So, from my point of view, I'm coming at it from a value seeking point of view, and statistically, I think it's the worst tournament of the year for that. Well, that's why I'm not as excited as you, because I'm looking at it from probably a different perspective.
I love the first round, some of the bets, some of the match bets. I love
the fact
that it starts, the final day of the Premier League is happening at the same time as the tennis. It's like a real good sort of feeling. It goes into the summer. You know, it's quite nice. Weather's good. But as you say, favourites have a brilliant record here. You go back through the list of who's won this tournament. It's been dominated by the favourites. Alcaraz won it last year. Novak Djokovic the year before. Nadal, Djokovic, and we had Nadal's domination for years and years and years and years. You probably got the stats there on the trends of it, but I can't remember the last big price winner. What was the last big price winner here?
By big price, I assume you mean more than 4-1.
Yeah, I was going to say 5-1, but bigger.
No player has won this at bigger odds than 4-1 since Stan Wawrinka won it in 2015, and even then he was only about 25-1, I think. So in the last 9 years, everyone that's won it has been 4-1 or shorter, basically. Do you want me to go through the rest of the trends?
Of course I do.
So the final has been contested by 2 of the top 8 seeds every year since Robin Söderling made the final as the 23rd seed in 2009. So if that trend is to be believed, you've just ruled out pretty much all of them, apart from anyone that's in the top 8. And people will remember that year. It was the year that Söderling shocked Rafael Nadal on a sort of damp, cold, sort of rainy day in Paris, and he ended up making the final. And Roger Federer, I think Roger Federer beat Söderling in the final that year for his only French Open. So one of the top 8 seeds is two of the top 8 seeds have contested this final pretty much every year. The number 1 seed, though, has only won it 4 times in the last 11 years, which is kind of a strange anomaly. But sometimes Nadal was the second seed or the third seed for this because he hadn't done that much on the other surfaces, so he wasn't always number 1 seed. That probably explains that. That I've just read out. So no qualifier has reached the quarterfinals this century. Those are the trends. Should we talk about the conditions, or do you want to save that for the?
Yeah, I mean the weather doesn't look good, does it? The early part of the week, next week was awful. Second week looks a little bit better if you look at the 14-day forecast. But this start we're going to get here is going to be a little rain around, a lot of damp, horrible kind of weather.
Doesn't look great, does it? I'll go through the general conditions. I mean, obviously it's weather dependent because it's played on clay, and all the courts tend to play differently. So it's not like a standard thing. Some will be slightly quicker, some will be slightly slower, depending on prevailing conditions on that particular court. Some of them are different. As a general rule, though, you can say it's on the slower side overall. In the last 4 editions, since they switched to Wilson balls, I think they used to play with Babolats here, but they've moved to Wilson balls I think it was 2021, the last 4 editions anyway. And I haven't counted the 2020 edition when it was played in September, because obviously very different conditions. That was COVID year. It was much, much later, much sort of damper and slower. But in the last 4 editions that we can really count, it averages 75% holds and 69% first serve points won. If you're going on that, you would say that it's a little bit quicker than Monte Carlo and Barcelona, just a slightly quicker, but slower than Rome, if you want to sort of look at it that way. Quite a few tie-break matches because it's played over 5 sets. Obviously, the chances of a tie-break in one of them is a lot higher. So 42% of the matches have featured a tie-break here in the last 4 editions. Now we get to underdog winners, which is the main reason why I'm not wild about this tournament. 24% underdog winners on average. And if you'd bet every underdog in the last 9 editions to a $10 stake, you would be minus $3,000.
Wow.
So, yeah. So not a great one for underdog winners.
No.
As far as the weather's concerned, yeah, I mean, it doesn't look great, does it? On Sunday, they start Sunday, don't they? There's a bit of rain around on Sunday, not going to get higher than around 21 degrees. Monday, kind of similar, high of 19 degrees and sort of fair. Tuesday, Wednesday, slightly similar, high of 21 degrees and fair as well. It gets slightly warmer from Thursday onwards, but it's not going to be more than 25 degrees, and it doesn't look like it's going to be particularly sunny. So I would suggest, with all that in mind, that the conditions this year, certainly for the first week, will be on the slower side.
Yeah, definitely on the slower side there. So that will suit some of the players, that won't suit others. We'll have a match betting show tomorrow. So this is going live. We're recording this on Friday. On Saturday, we'll be releasing our best bets on round 1. So if you've got best bets on round 1 on Sunday, Monday, you've got to be here. So make sure you hit that subscribe button for all the best content at the French Open. Let's have a look at the draw. The all-important draw was announced yesterday, and it's given Jannik Sinner, number 1 seed, who hasn't got a great record. He's only ever got to this furthest ever got the semi-finals last year. Given him quite a tough draw, actually, to be fair. Carlos Alcaraz, the number 2 seed, has been given a more favourable draw. Let's have a look how obviously it doesn't go to plan, as I say every time we do this show, but let's have a look. If it went to the way of the seedings, this is how it would be in the quarterfinal stage. Jannik Sinner would be up against Jack Draper. Then we would have Zverev playing Djokovic, and that is in the top half. In the bottom half, we had Musetti would play, who would he play? He would play Taylor Fritz. Then we'd have Casper Ruud, and he would play Alcaraz. That was the way that the seedings would go if we had the 8 players through. And as Sean said, there's probably, you're talking about the finals being contested by 8 players. There's probably 3 of those 8 that can't win anyway. So you've narrowed the field down to 5 already before you even start. Yeah. So that's the conundrum we find here, trying to find some value apart from those players that have dominated. Obviously, Alcaraz is been brilliant. Won it last year, semi-finals year before, and the quarter-finals. Just come on a massive win against Jannik Sinner over in Rome. But they're a real statement in that final there. And no surprise, Bet Rivers have the Spaniard as the favourite at plus 110 to retain his trophy. Not many people have retained his trophy, but Rafael Nadal has. And Thomas Muster, I think, did as well a few years back. But Alcaraz is plus 110 to win a second French Open title. Jannik Sinner, the number 1 seed, not a good draw. He's $2. Then we go into big prices. So you can see it's dominated. Look, you've got the top 2 there. That is 80% of the market is on the top 2. So what Bet Rivers are saying is minus $4 that one of those 2 will win. It's 4-1 that you can have the other 126 players. That's the difficulty we have trying to find some value in this draw. Novak Djokovic is 11. Alexander Zverev is 14. Novak Djokovic is actually in Geneva bidding to win his 100th ATP Tour crown currently. Zverev is 14-1. Last year's beaten finalist. Got a good record here, though. A couple of semi-finals, 3 semi-finals successively before that. Casper Ruud, 2 finalists here, 2-time finalist here, is 21-1. Lorenzo Musetti been in great form this season, 25. Jack Draper, 28-1, probably a bit early for him. Wimbledon round the corner is where the Brit will be highlighting. Holger Rune, 37. Tsitsipas, 66-1, a former finalist. Francisco Cerundolo, Mr. Consistent on the tour so far on all services, 80-1. Alex de Minaur, 100. Arthur Fils, 100-1. The Frenchman will have the support of the home nation. Could go deep, Arthur Fils. João Fonseca, a talent player, 100-1. Taylor Fritz, 100-1. There's a whole host of them at 100-1. But as I said, the market is dominated by Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner. And combined, if you took the two of them, you're betting them at -$4. That is the problem with it, Sean. We could sit here now, and I think if someone put a gun to your head and said, who's going to win this tournament, I think both of us would say Carlos Alcaraz after his performance last week. But he is +110, and that comes with some problems. He could get injured. There could be some issues that go for him. So, he's the likely winner, but we can't tip him at +110, can we?
I could, but you don't need someone like me to point out that the +110 favourite is likely to win. I mean, he wasn't that price a day or so ago, was he? I don't think, because the odds have changed since the draw, and it looks like a great draw for Carlos Alcaraz, really. I mean, number 2, 3, and 4 in that outright list are all in the other half of the draw. So if you're looking at that, the only one he'll have to beat before the final is probably, well, 2 maybe, Casper Ruud and Musetti to get to the final. It just looks like a fabulous draw, doesn't it? In the top half, you've got Sinner, Zverev, Djokovic, Draper, Cerundolo, Fils, Medvedev, Fonseca, if you want to throw him in there as well. All of them in the top half.
Mensik as well. 1,000-winner Mensik. He's in there
Mensik in there as well, yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be so keen on him on the the slower conditions, but his serve can get through even the slow conditions. Would be surprised if he had a decent tournament as well. And in the bottom half, you've got obviously Alcaraz. You've got Ruud, Rune, Musetti, Tsitsipas, and Fritz. I mean, it's hard to make a case for any of them beating Alcaraz, really. Casper Ruud, I just don't see him beating Alcaraz over even over the best of 3, but best of 5, a Grand Slam. He just isn't that. He's not at that level. Casper Ruud, very, very consistent. Maxes out the ability that he has, but 2-time finalist here. But you can't see him beating Alcaraz unless there's an issue with Alcaraz physically. Holger Rune, you wouldn't fancy him just based on his injury record. There's always something wrong with him: sickness, injury, illness, whatever it is. There's always seems to be an issue. I mean, they say, don't they? It's written on Chatrier. Victory goes to the most tenacious, and you wouldn't put Rune in the top 100 in the world in tenacity. If there's a slight issue, he's off. I know it would be different at the French. He probably would put it in a bit more, but with his record, it's very difficult to see Holger Rune, if he does get through that section, then beating Alcaraz over the best of 5 in what will be a physical semi-final. I just don't see it. Same for Musetti. I was confident about Musetti up until the semi-finals in Rome when he just didn't show up again against Alcaraz. Let's not beat around the bush. He bottled it. He just didn't fancy it at all, Musetti, on that day. Physical issues would worry me with him as well. I talked about that when he got to the final in Monte Carlo. He was absolutely done. I know Monte Carlo's a tight schedule, but even so, the physical doubts remain about Musetti, the mental hurdle. He doesn't seem to be able to overcome it in big matches yet against the very best. That would worry me when you've got a price like 25-1. He's as short as 5-4 plus 125 to win Q3. Yes, he's the most likely winner in what's a weak quarter, but it's hard to see him winning the tournament, beating Alcaraz and getting to the final. I don't see it. Tsitsipas, slightly more tempting at the price. Was he 66-1 there? Slightly more tempting. He's chopped and changed everything this season. Changed the racket, changed it back again. He's got a tricky looking first match against a suddenly resurgent Echeverry as well. But again, can you see him beating Alcaraz? He's got to go through Alcaraz early on. Hard to see him beating Alcaraz. He's lost a couple of times to Musetti as well. He would perhaps be the one at just on the odds, 66-1. Maybe if he can find his best form, that's a possibility. But again, I don't see him beating Alcaraz. Taylor Fritz doesn't look like he's in any sort of form. He's had a lot of injury problems this year. Slow clay, you wouldn't fancy him anyway, and he certainly seems to be struggling. So the question is, who's going to beat Alcaraz in that bottom half of the draw? Unless something weird happens, like he lost to Botic van der Zandschulp at the US Open. Different situation though here. I just can't see Alcaraz not making the final from that bottom half of the draw. So for me, the value is in the top half.
Certainly is the value in the top half, where Jannik Sinner is the man most likely to get to the final, 2-1 to win on the tournament with Bet Rivers. But he hasn't got a great record, as he's shown, and that would have hurt him, the manner of defeat in his home in Rome. That would have really hurt him coming here.
it's the physical thing that again worries me with Sinner. You know, he hadn't played for 3 months. After the first match, or the first or second match back after 3 months, he's got a ton of blisters, really bad ones, and then he's got a foot injury. After two matches over like a couple of sets, he's injured again. Again, it comes back to victory belongs to the most tenacious. Yes, mentally he might be, but physically, I just don't see it. You know, he's got a very difficult draw. If he can't last, you know, a week in Rome, you know, in these conditions, slow conditions, obviously, I just think it's a very short price on someone who's, you know, he's admitted that, you know, hard courts, you know, probably grass as well, would be a more preferable surface for him. I would say hard courts, clay. You know, it's a lot harder. It's, you know, it's a different game. It takes so much out of you physically, and I still don't think he's up to it. To be honest, he's the most likely finalist, obviously, you know, on ability, of course, but I'm just not convinced that he's going to win enough of these. If some of these matches go 5 or 4, a really long 4, you're thinking about him turning up with the bandages on in the next match, and then what's going to happen? So that would worry me at plus 200. I don't think there's any value in him at all there. I think Artur Fils is potentially the alternative in that course. Just looking down the list here, he's got a tricky one.
That's who I like, Sean. That's who I like. I think 100 to 1 Fils is a big price. I just think that he's got everything for him. The crowd behind him. I know that it's not been a helping hand to have the French crowd behind you, but I think this kid's built differently.
Yeah,
and his record is he's only lost to the big players. If you look at his clay court record, I know he had a couple of silly results, but this year he's played Alcaraz at Monte Carlo, got beat, but pushed him really, really close. Should have beaten him really, and he got beat by Alcaraz again in Barcelona. We got very heavily beaten. He's beat Tsitsipas. You know, he's beat Rublev at Monte Carlo. I watched him in Monte Carlo. I thought he was exceptional. And that match against Alcaraz, he had him on the ropes, and I thought he could win it. And I think 100 to 1 is a big price because I, like you, I generally think Sinner's going to get beat along the route. I think 2 to 1 is far too short for Sinner. I think he's vulnerable, and I think Fils running into him will relish that. And I think it's the kind of match he can beat him. I like that. Fils price is a big price because if you take Sinner away from that first quarter, there's not really much there, is there? Really?
Well, you've got some...
They're all much of a much, though, aren't they? They're all decent. You know, Fonseca, Mencic, they're all Draper. You can't have him, but they're all players that Fils wouldn't have any worries. I don't think Fils would be too concerned about any of them.
Yeah, I mean, the worry for me for Fils, I agree with you in terms of ability. Again, the worry for me, coming back to the same thing, is physicality. You know, does he have that in him at the moment? I'm not convinced that he does. In terms of, you know, he's got Jarry in the first round. If Jarry serves as well, I know he's not been playing well, Jarry, recently, but you know, he's a guy that on his day, if he's serving well, that could be a really long 4 sets. You know, then he's got to come back, and I think he's got to play. Is he got to play de Minaur next?
No, he'll play Ugo,
or is he Munar?
Munar, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's not going to be easy either. People will say, you know, oh yeah, you should beat Munar or Ugo Cabal, but these matches can easily turn into grinds. You know, in slow conditions, it's not that easy to hit players off the court. That would be my worry about Artur Fils. I think I agree with you in the sense that I think he's the best alternative to Sinner in that section. But I think I haven't got the quarter winners in front of me, the prices, but I think he's only about 8 to 1 or something like that, isn't he, to win that quarter? I'm not sure I've got that. Oh no, he's bigger than
17 to 1.
Yeah, that would probably be interesting. Again, my worry is physicality, as I say, ability-wise, mental strength-wise. Yes, he does tick the boxes. A little bit concerned, to say the least, about it physically. I just, you know, he's a player that does have a long-standing back problem. I just worry about that when it comes to Artur Fils. Just moving on to Q2. Do you want me to come up with do you want me to say about Q2?
Yeah, 100%. This is, I mean, you've got Novak Djokovic in there, obviously, who's going for his 100th tournament this currently in Geneva. I don't know if he's going to be out or he's still in or out when this goes live, but he's in semi-final action today.
Yeah. Up
against Cam Norrie. He should win that. He's -$7. So he could come in here with a 100th win, which is a big achievement for him and a milestone. Then he'll come here winning a tournament, which I would never have thought he'd be doing. I thought he was a massive favourite, but he's the favourite to win this quarter.
Yeah, I mean, it's so difficult, isn't it, with Novak? He sometimes, the level he showed at times this season has been awful. Really bad, like the worst we've seen from him over the years. And then he'll just pop up like he did last year. He was struggling last year a little bit, popped up and won the Olympics with an incredible level, particularly against Alcaraz in the final. I just think this is a lot harder. He's just turned 38, I think, yesterday? Slow conditions. It would be a heck of an achievement. Probably his best achievement of all time if he wins this tournament at his age. But you can't count him out, can you? You just look at him now in Geneva, and he's absolutely fine. He's certainly got a major chance, but I prefer 80 to 1 shot in the second quarter. I think that's where I see the value in this tournament. I wouldn't bet him to win this quarter as low as 6 to 1 there, but Francisco Cerundolo for me, 80 to 1. So you're getting 40 to 1 for him to get to the final. I could certainly see him making the semi-finals from this draw. And the reason being he's drawn with Alexander Zverev, who he has a really strong record against. He's beaten Zverev all 3 times that they've met, all on clay. Twice in Madrid, where it's quicker at altitude, and once in Buenos Aires, where it's really, really slow. And he's not been lucky in these matches. He's beaten pretty convincingly, 104 to 96 in terms of the service points won, return points won totals, winning 57% of his second serve points against 42% for Zverev. So he's been very much the better player from the back of the court. Held serve 94% of the time against Zverev on clay, which is crazy. You wouldn't expect that at all. It's just a very, very good matchup for Cerundolo. His backhand can match Zverev's backhand. Zverev's solidity on his backhand side is one of his strengths. He doesn't miss very often on that backhand side, but Cerundolo can match him. And I would certainly suggest that Cerundolo's forehand is bigger than Zverev's, and it doesn't go missing as often as Zverev's does. And that's why he's been able to win that matchup 3 times out of 3 on this surface. The other factor is that with Cerundolo, obviously he's been in great form this season. I'm not worried about him in Hamburg. I said before the Hamburg show that I didn't fancy him. I thought he might get a bit of a tanky week from Cerundolo. He's not on his own, by the way, but that's what happens the week before majors, and rightly so if you think you've got a chance to go deep. The other factor is that Cerundolo should have beaten Novak Djokovic here last year. I'm sure you probably remember the match. He was 2 sets to 1 up, Cerundolo, a break-up in the fourth.
We bet him, I think.
I think we might have done, to win the quarter or something. I can't remember. We might bet him to win that match. Should have won it again. It's Francisco should have won it. Cerundolo. That's his nickname. And the only the big issue with Cerundolo is mentally. He does sometimes lose matches that he should have won. Did it with Casper Ruud quite recently when he took something like 2 or 3 out of about 18 breakpoint chances from a winning position. Mentally, just wasn't able to do it, and that's what happened to him against Novak Djokovic. You would think, I would hope, that he would learn from that experience, on Chatrier, having had Djokovic where he wanted him, and just mentally, if that was any other player, he would have won that match, Cerundolo, you would think, because it was Novak Djokovic in a major, in a huge tournament. He choked it. Can he learn from that? Well, I hope so, and that's why he is the price that he is, because on ability, he should be ahead of several of these. I've talked before about his record against top 10 players. It's very, very good. Zverev being, the obvious example. So the fact that he's a short of 6 to 1 with Bet Rivers to win that quarter tells you that he's got a very lively chance of winning that quarter. But 6 to 1 is very short for me when you can get him 40 to 1 basically to get to the semi-finals and then obviously win that semi-final. If it's not Sinner in that semi-final, which it may well not be, then I think that's where you've got to be looking for the value. There's a pathway there I could see for him to get to the semi-finals, and then obviously it's how's he look from there on.
I think the conclusion of the draw is Carlos Alcaraz is certainly the man to beat. The draw's been very favourable. If you want to take the plus 110, that's entirely up to you. But the strategy we're here is trying to look for a finalist or someone at a big price each way who can go deep in the top half of the draw, because that's where we believe Jannik Sinner is vulnerable. His conditioning coming back from a long layoff, and he hasn't recovered very well from Rome, and the draw he's been given is a tough one. So Sean's highlighting there, Francisco Cerundolo at 80-1. It's going to be our official play, the number 18 seed. He's had one of his best ever season. Really consistent throughout the year, and he's up to his highest ranking at the moment, the Argentinian. I quite like Artur Fils as well. I'll be betting him at 100-1 as well. If you want to do that as well, it's entirely up to you, but it won't be our official play. Our official play here will be Francisco Cerundolo, but we both come off the same idea that we want to fade Sinner in some capacity. We both agree that Carlos Alcaraz will win the tournament, and that is plus 110 with BetRivers. Download the BetRivers app. You'll get all these outright prices. Remember, the tournament starts on Sunday, goes through for 2 weeks, and we will have the most extensive coverage of the French Open here on the Betting Weekly Studios. We mentioned the quarters there in passing, Sean. Let's have a look at a couple of the quarters if you want to talk us through them. Q1 Jannik Sinner minus 250. I mean, come on now. Minus 250 Jannik Sinner is absolute. You've got to be absolutely brave or absolutely ridiculously stupid to bet minus 250 on Jannik Sinner. Jack Draper at 4-1 doesn't inspire me much confidence, and nor does Alex de Minaur at 9. So there has to be some value there. Fils at 17, Fonseca at 30. Already have sort of caught my attention.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to back Draper, isn't it? 4-1 plus 400 to win that quarter, given that it's going to be slow conditions. Yeah, he's been playing great this season. His clay game is coming on, but it's hard to see him winning that quarter. I've talked about this numerous times. It's come back to the same thing. The physical element with Draper, there's always a problem, isn't there? Not so much over the best of threes. He has improved. Give him his due. He has improved physically, but if he has a couple of 5-setters on the sort of slowish clay, you wouldn't fancy him at all, and that just seems very short to win the quarter. De Minaur has got pretty good stats on clay. He can play on clay, but his terrible record against Sinner. I haven't got it to hand, but it's absolutely dreadful. Just looking at the draw. He would have to go through Sinner, wouldn't he? He's in that immediate section. He's got to go through Fils as well, which is a concern. I just can't see Alex de Minaur as a French Open finalist, semi-finalist. I'm not convinced about either. So the two, I think going further, I think I'm more interested. Artur Fils 16-1. We've talked about him at some length. Yeah, a very lively chance in that quarter if his body holds up. Fonseca, we haven't really talked about. He's got her cash in the first match, I think, hasn't he?
Yeah, what a match that will be.
He's slight favourite, Fonseca. Given the way that her cash serves, depends on what court it's on. That won't be an easy match. That could very well be a long match. Fonseca comes through that in like a really long 4 or 5. Again, you've got to worry about him physically. Certainly very much unproven over this sort of distance. Best of 5. Rublev is playing better in Hamburg this week so far, but he's still a work in progress. He's really tried to totally change his kind of mental approach to the game. He's still lacking. I mean, even at his best, you wouldn't necessarily fancy him as a Grand Slam finalist. Maybe he could get close in this quarter. It's a possibility. Davidovich Fokina is not without a chance either. He was a bit tanky yesterday in Hamburg. Again, not a major surprise. Almost certainly saving himself for the major. He would have to go through Jannik Sinner as well by the look of this draw. I wouldn't say he definitely couldn't beat Jannik Sinner. I think there's a possibility if Sinner's struggling physically as he was in that Rome final. So there's a few decent players in that Q1 that could surprise Sinner. I think I agree with you. Artur Fils is probably all over, probably the best alternative to Sinner in that section. Yeah,
Jannik Sinner minus 250, just very, very short. The other thing with Jack Draper as well is obviously the grass court season starts so quickly straight after the French Open. He's going to be the pin-up boy for Wimbledon. He's got so much pressure there. I mean, if he's got any question about his fitness, he's got to save himself for Wimbledon. He's got a realistic chance. He's single-figure price to win Wimbledon, vying for third favouritism when he's third favourite. That's got to be on his mind there. Q2, Novak Djokovic is the favourite, plus 160. Alexander Zverev, plus 170. Sean has already touched on Francisco Cerundolo at 6-1, not being the value when you get 840-1 for him to actually go one better and get to the final. So probably no bet there, but Surprisingly for me that Djokovic is considered the favourite ahead of Zverev. I'm surprised by that because I think if they met in the quarterfinal, I would probably make Zverev a marginal favourite given the age of Djokovic and the route he would have to take.
Yeah, you're just going the other way there, aren't you? Plus 160, plus 170. You'd probably have that the other way around, wouldn't you?
I would have. I'm on our power rankings on the newsletter. Zverev is a higher ranking than Djokovic, which suggests that he will be a slight favourite if they met in a major. And I think that's probably about right. Djokovic has got to be the favourite because probably the support by Zverev for me would be the favourite in Q2.
Yeah, I think it would be tough if it came down to Zverev Djokovic, which would be what, quarterfinal. Looking at this draw to try and figure it out.
Yeah.
I just think it would be very, very difficult for Novak Djokovic to win that. At his age. I mean, no, Zverev's not been playing well, but he was sick in Hamburg. He said he threw up 37 times. It's very accurate.
Counts them.
Who's sitting there going, right? Well, that's one, that's two. That seems a bit strange. I think he was exaggerating there, but he clearly wasn't well in Hamburg. I wouldn't worry about that. The main issue for Zverev is he's got to go through Cerundolo, who's got an absolutely shocking record against. Djokovic, not for me, not a certainty. Just looking at this draw again, he will probably have to go through Medvedev, which would not be easy. Even though if it's on clay, Medvedev will make Djokovic work extremely hard. If he got that far. I'm just looking at this other section. It's not a great section, is it? Apart from Medvedev and Djokovic, the immediate section that Djokovic is in. You've got Wawrinka in there and Humbert, Shapovalov. You wouldn't. Mute, you wouldn't really fancy any of those guys getting past either Djokovic or Medvedev. It could well be a Medvedev Djokovic. He'll probably have to beat Medvedev in a really long match, then beat Zverev in a really long match. I just think it's too short on Djokovic and Zverev and Cerundolo, incidentally. But yeah, Cerundolo for me is the lively one there, but no real value at 6-1.
Q3 is an interesting one. Taylor Fritz is in that quarter. He is the guy that's the highest seed, and everybody wanted to be in that seed in that section with Taylor Fritz. You can see by the graphic, he's $9 to win that quarter. Lorenzo Musetti is the favourite, plus 125. But that, to me, is the weakest one of the lot. But again, you've got to be very brave to bet Lorenzo Musetti. Anything really caught your attention there? Really, sure, nothing really there to pick, was it?
I mean, it's very difficult to go beyond the first two, really. I can't see Taylor Fritz the way he's playing at the minute, the way his body has been this year, the slow conditions. It's difficult to make much of a case for Taylor Fritz unless Musetti or Rune, struggle physically or lose early on. But just looking at this draw, I mean, it does look a very good one for Musetti and Rune. They look the obvious contenders. Looking beyond that, it's a struggle, really. As I say, Fritz not in great form or the conditions won't particularly suit him. I can't imagine they'll suit Thomas Mahatch either. He was yet another. I mean, I don't know how many times he's retired this season. Mahatch retired again against Cam Norrie. Given his physical struggles and the slow conditions, you wouldn't fancy him either. Korda could be interesting if he's on his best form. You wouldn't think slow clay would particularly suit him, but he has played well here before. And then you're into Kecmanovic, Medvedev, and Navone. I would be very surprised if any of those three. And Navone could be interesting. I mean, if it's really, really slow, I wouldn't be surprised if he won a few matches. Hard to see Kecmanovic or Medvedev really doing that much in quarter three. So it does look a good situation for Musetti or Rune. If you sort of force me into a bet, I would potentially take Rune over Musetti. I just think Musetti's a bit short there, plus 125, given his physical struggles that he's had. And I'd probably lean slightly more towards Rune, but he's not one to be trusted either physically.
Talking of short prices, quarter four, Carlos Alcaraz, minus 435. I know you'll be all over that, Sean.
Yeah.
You'll be putting Lagan's inheritance on that, minus 435, Carlos Alcaraz. An easy pickup, that is, minus 435. I'm sure it'll be very popular with the Bet Rivers bettors, the minus 435, but really looking at it, who could stop him?
I don't know. An absolutely peak Tsitsipas, as I've said, is possible. I don't see it personally, but if Alcaraz is sort of struggling a little bit physically, he has had his physical issues. They all do. If he is just a little bit below par, then I would maybe think Tsitsipas in with some sort of chance. But the fact that you've got sort of Marijan in there as sort of fifth, sixth favourite, and Offner's playing well, obviously, but these aren't. Popyrin's got a terrible record here. Khachanov, you wouldn't fancy in those conditions. Tommy Paul, yeah, possibly. He's certainly got a clay pedigree. Did well in Rome both this year and last year. He's a possibility. It does look like Alcaraz against Ruud, doesn't it? Yeah.
It looks like Alcaraz, doesn't it? It looks like Alcaraz. It looks like Alcaraz.
It's very hard to kind of confidently say, oh well, this such and such will give him a hard match. I'm not sure any of those guys will if Alcaraz is on his best form and on his best physical condition.
Yeah. So there it is. That's our preview of the French Open men's singles title. We believe Carlos Alcaraz will win it. We're not going to put him as an official play. We're going to look for an each-way alternative. And that each-way alternative from Sean is Francisco Cerúndolo at 80-1 with Bet Rivers, who are offering half the odds 1-2. So you can get 40-1 for the Argentinian to get to the final. I quite like Artur Fils at 100-1, 50-1 to get to the final. I'll certainly be betting that as well as Cerúndolo. So we're cheering on Fils and Cerúndolo for me. But the official pick for the show is Cerúndolo. No official picks on the quarter betting, because you see there's so many heavy favourites and so many different sort of possibilities. But obviously Cerúndolo offers the much better value on the each-way part to get to the final than on the quarter. I've just recorded a show on Betting Weekly WTA with Roy Girani, looking at the women's draw. Looking at the draw. What a lopsided draw that is. The top half of the draw absolutely stacked. The bottom half very, very weak. And we have some each-way value and some picks on the quarters there, myself and Rory. It's the final day of the Premier League season tomorrow, Sunday, and we'll have a live betcast with myself, Jack Wright and Steve Wiss, giving you all the goals as they go in, all the in-play from Bet Rivers, and we are live at 11:30 Eastern, 10:30 Eastern Time, 3 o'clock over in the UK, 3:30 in the UK, with the kick-off at 4 o'clock. So make sure you join us for that. Follow us on our socials at Because We Win. And finally, that is the outright matches. That's the outright completed. We're looking at the matches, the best bets in round one. Myself and Sean and myself and Rory will be back to delve into the draw and give you the best bets on round one tomorrow, which will be live on Saturday on the YouTube channel. We've got you covered on every sport, on the tennis, on the soccer, American sports as well. Doug Kazarian and his team have been on fire on the baseball and the basketball shows over the last 48 hours or so. Lots of winners there as well. Hopefully we can cash some tickets here, and hopefully the trend bucks a little bit and we get some outsiders doing well over in Paris. Sean, thank you very much for your time. As always, I'll catch up with you again tomorrow. That's it for Betting Weekly Game Bet Match for now, but we're back again tomorrow to look at the best bets in round one at the French Open. The second major of 2025 is just a day or two away now.